A Saudi billionaire buys a single mother at auction to have her child for $1 million. But what he discovers next shocks him. Noura was a young woman grappling with overwhelming challenges, striving to care for her son, Zaid. Desperate and with no other options in sight, she found herself entering a bizarre auction where women were treated as commodities, their companionship bid on by wealthy, influential men. This wasn't a choice born of desire. It was sheer survival. Sitting quietly in a lavishly decorated hall, Noura felt the crushing weight of her circumstances. Her heart raced, every beat echoing her fears and doubts about what awaited her. But thoughts of Zaid kept her grounded. He was at home with their elderly neighbor that evening, blissfully unaware of his mother's predicament. Mounting debts, the threat of eviction, and nights when Zaid went to bed hungry had driven her to this unthinkable decision. The event's organizer, a sharply dressed man with a forced businesslike smile, approached her. "Remember, Noura, keep your composure, smile, and avoid direct eye contact with the guests," he instructed before disappearing into the crowd. Around her, elegantly dressed men scrutinized the women like art pieces at a gallery. When her name was called, Noura's heart sank. "Lot number 23, the organizer announced with theatrical precision. As she ascended the steps to the stage, the harsh spotlights illuminated her face, causing her to sweat. Despite the weight of their predatory gazes, she forced herself to stand tall. "A rare beauty," the organizer proclaimed, layering compliments that only deepened Noura's discomfort. A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd until a deep, authoritative voice silenced the room. $1 million. The statement carried a power that drew every gaze toward a man seated in the back row. His tanned complexion, piercing eyes, and commanding presence set him apart from the rest. Tariq al-Rashid, an enigmatic Arab tycoon famed for his immense wealth and discretion, had made the bid. The organizer, momentarily stunned, repeated the amount to confirm. No other offers followed. "Sold," he declared, clearly pleased with the outcome. Noura's knees wobbled as she stepped off the stage, her life irreversibly altered in that moment. Tariq approached her, his expression calm but unreadable. "We need to discuss the terms," he said in an even tone, extending a hand to guide her. Hesitant but resigned, Noura followed him into a private room where the reality of her decision awaited. The room was both spacious and exquisitely decorated, every detail carefully curated. Tariq gestured for her to sit in an armchair while he retrieved an envelope from a nearby table. "This is the contract," he said, handing it to her. "Read it carefully." Noura's hands trembled as she held the document. The silence in the room was almost suffocating as her eyes scanned the clauses. Her breathing quickened when she reached a pivotal section. "You want me to have a child and leave it with you?" she asked, her voice breaking. Tariq crossed his arms and nodded. "I need an heir. After the child is born, you'll leave. That's outlined very clearly in the contract." Noura rose from her seat, a mixture of anger and fear flooding her senses. "I can't do this," she said, her voice trembling. "I won't abandon my child." Tariq's gaze hardened, though his voice stayed calm. "You knew exactly what you were signing up for when you entered that auction. There's no backing out now." "This is barbaric," Noura fired back, clutching the contract with trembling hands. "Do you think you can just buy a child and toss aside his mother like she's nothing?" Tariq took a step closer, his commanding presence filling the room. "I paid $1 million for you, Noura," he said firmly. "This was not a spontaneous choice. Now, you have no choice." Noura's heart pounded in her chest. She felt trapped, cornered in a way that left no room for escape. Tariq set a pen on the table in front of her. "Sign the contract. Once the baby is born, you'll get the money and be free to go on with your life." Noura stared at the paper, her hands shaking with a mix of fury and helplessness. Her thoughts raced to Zaid and the sacrifice she was making for his future. She fought back the tears threatening to spill over. "This isn't right," she whispered, sinking back into her chair. Tarek leaned forward, his tone unyielding. "What's right or wrong doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that you keep your word." The weight of his words pressed on her, and Nora realized there was no way out. With a heavy heart, she picked up the pen and signed the contract. Tarek collected the document and nodded. "Good. Tomorrow morning we'll take care of the necessary medical exams, and then you'll move into my mansion. Get some rest." As he left the room, Nora was left alone with her thoughts, staring at her signature as though it had locked her into a fate she couldn't change. The next morning, a sleek limousine idled outside her modest apartment. Saying goodbye to Zaid had been quick and excruciating. She'd told him she had to go work far away for a while, promising to call him whenever she could. Oblivious to the truth, the little boy waved at her with a cheerful smile. Nora's heart ached as she climbed into the car, the journey to Tarek's estate stretching out in silence. The familiar view of the desert melted into a scene of towering modern structures and opulence. Upon arrival, the grandeur of the mansion left her speechless. Perfectly manicured gardens and a sprawling estate, straight out of a movie, were hidden behind ornate iron gates. Tarek stood at the entrance, his face as unreadable as ever. He guided her inside, giving a curt explanation of the house layout and rules. "Your privacy will be respected, but I expect you to fulfill your end of the agreement without complaint," he said, then handed her off to a staff member named Salma. Salma, a warm-faced woman in her 50s, showed Noura to her room. The space was elegantly decorated in soft, soothing tones, a stark contrast to the simplicity she had known. On the bed were carefully selected clothes and accessories. "If you need anything, just let me know," Salma said with a kind smile before leaving. Noura murmured her thanks, though she felt entirely out of place in the lavish surroundings. That night, as she stood on the balcony of her room, gazing at the horizon, her thoughts returned to Zaid. The pain of being away from him was suffocating, but she clung to the hope that this sacrifice was for his future. A knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. Tarek stood there, his expression unchanged. "Tomorrow, we'll see my doctor," he said, before walking away. He had informed her before his departure, leaving Noura to nod in silent acknowledgement. With every minute that passed, the gravity of her choice pressed harder on her chest. Yet, there was no turning back now. The following morning, Noura woke before dawn. The mansion, despite its grandeur, felt eerily quiet, its silence unsettling rather than comforting. Her first night there had been restless, her thoughts spinning endlessly about the uncertain road ahead. Though the bed was plush, with silk sheets that felt like clouds, the weight of her reality left her unable to find peace. Salma soon appeared at her door, ready to escort her to Tarek's doctor. As they walked through the expansive home, the mansion's opulence was on full display. Hallways lined with rich Persian rugs, walls adorned with masterful artwork, and windows framing views of perfectly manicured gardens. Noura barely had time to absorb it all before they stepped into a sleek limousine bound for the clinic. The doctor's office was located in a state-of-the-art building in the heart of Dubai. Dr. Hadi greeted Noura with a calming presence and a professional demeanor. After a thorough examination, he assured her that everything was ready for the fertilization process to begin. Noura nodded, keeping her unease hidden beneath a composed exterior. Meanwhile, Tarek remained distant, observing from across the room with his usual air of detachment. For Tarek, this was a straightforward transaction, part of fulfilling his responsibilities. For Noura, it was a painful step toward an inevitable heartbreak, a reminder that she would soon carry a child she could never truly call her own. Back at the mansion, She tried to distract herself by exploring its endless halls and extravagant rooms. Each space seemed more indulgent than the last. A library with towering shelves, a marble-clad indoor pool, and a music room filled with rare and exotic instruments. Yet, despite the splendor, the mansion felt devoid of warmth. Noura began to sense that Tarek, though surrounded by beauty, led a life of profound loneliness. His smiles were rare, his politeness calculated and cold. In their early interactions, Tarek kept things strictly businesslike, focusing on the contract's terms and avoiding personal connection. Conversely, Noura experienced a growing sense of alienation. Her nights were spent staring at the ceiling, worrying about her son, Zaid, and her days were consumed by the growing realization that she was stepping into an uncharted and isolating experience. By the second week, Tarek hosted a formal dinner for business associates. Noura was expected to dress elegantly and attend alongside him, as stipulated in their agreement. Wearing a breathtaking gown, she descended the mansion's grand staircase, with uncertain steps. In the main hall, the guests observed her with polite curiosity, though some exchanged glances that left her feeling exposed. Tarek stayed by her side the entire evening, introducing her as my special guest. During a brief moment alone, he leaned in and asked, "Are you all right?" His question was unexpected, a rare glimmer of concern. "I'm trying to adjust," Noura admitted quietly. Tarek nodded, offering no further comment. For him, such events were mere obligations. For Noura, they felt like stepping into an unfamiliar and intimidating world. Later that evening, drained from the dinner, Noura retreated to her room. Before sleeping, she called her neighbor to check on Zaid. Hearing her son's cheerful voice brought comfort, but also tears. Her longing for him was overwhelming, but she knew she couldn't give in to the desire to return to her old life. As days turned into weeks, Noura began noticing small, surprising details about Tarek that didn't match his cold exterior. One afternoon, she found him in the garden, carefully watering a rare plant. It seemed to hold a special meaning for him. "This plant belonged to my mother," he explained, noticing her curiosity. "She always said that caring for it brought her peace." Noura felt a surge of empathy in that moment, seeing a flicker of humanity beneath Tarek's rigid demeanor. For the first time, Tarek seemed less like an intimidating presence and more like a man struggling to deal with his own pain. Noura started to realize that, despite their different motivations, both Tarek and Salma were grappling with significant emotional burdens. Salma, too, started opening up more to Noura. During the quiet afternoons in the mansion, the housekeeper shared bits of Tarek's past, revealing how he had shouldered adult responsibilities far too early after losing his parents. These moments of storytelling gave Noura a glimpse into the life of a man she had thought to be unreachable. Yet, despite these insights, the mansion's stillness still felt isolating. Noura tried to keep her distance, reminding herself that her stay was temporary. Even so, she found comfort in her solitary walks through the gardens and the peaceful nights gazing at the stars from her balcony. One evening, Tarek knocked on her door. He didn't look as stern as usual. His expression had softened just a little. "We need to talk," he said, as he stepped inside. Noura sat down, bracing for another round of instructions or expectations. For the first time, Tarek seemed less like an intimidating presence and more like a man struggling to deal with his own pain. Noura started to realize that, despite their different motivations, both Tarek and Salma were grappling with significant emotional burdens. Salma, too, started opening up more to Noura. During the quiet afternoons in the mansion, the housekeeper shared bits of Tarek's past, revealing how he had shouldered adult responsibilities far too early after losing his parents. These moments of storytelling gave Noura a glimpse into the life of a man she had thought to be unreachable. Yet despite these insights, the mansion's stillness still felt isolating. Noura tried to keep her distance, reminding herself that her stay was temporary. Even so, she found comfort in her solitary walks through the gardens and the peaceful nights gazing at the stars from her balcony. One evening, Tarek knocked on her door. He didn't look as stern as usual. His expression had softened just a little. "We need to talk," he said as he stepped inside. Noura sat down, bracing for another round of instructions or expectations. The thought terrified her, but it also sparked a curiosity she couldn't ignore. Who was this man who had asked her to make such a life-changing decision? As days passed, Noura settled into a routine. Though she still wrestled with her choice, she began to notice the small, comforting details around her. The garden became her sanctuary, a place where she could feel the sun's warmth and listen to the gentle trickle of water from the fountains. She noticed that Tarek often spent time there too. He didn't go out of his way to talk to her, but she could feel his eyes following her movements, silently observing. There was an unspoken tension between them, something they both felt but avoided addressing. One afternoon, while wandering through the garden, Noura spotted Tarek carefully trimming a tree. He glanced up briefly when he noticed her, but returned to his work without a word, signaling that he wasn't looking for a conversation. "Do you like gardening?" Noura asked, breaking the quiet moment. "It helps me clear my mind," Tarek responded, not looking up. Noura noticed a tiny crack in his stoic demeanor. Though he seemed guarded, he wasn't entirely unapproachable. She decided to tread carefully, respecting his boundaries, yet her curiosity about the layers behind his reserved nature grew stronger. That evening, Tarek unexpectedly joined her at the dinner table. Up until then, Noura had eaten alone, her meals delivered by Salma, either to her room or a quiet corner of the house. His calm presence filled the space, yet it carried a certain gravity Noura couldn't ignore. "Are you settling in okay?" he asked, while pouring himself a glass of wine. "I think so. As much as I can," Noura replied, striving to keep her tone steady. Tarek studied her briefly, as if trying to decipher her thoughts. "I know it's challenging, but I hope you can see that this is all necessary," he said. Noura wanted to ask, necessary for who? But she held back, simply nodding and continuing her meal in silence. There was something in his voice that hinted at an emotional weight he hid beneath his stern exterior. Over time, Noura began to notice quiet acts of kindness from Tarek. They were subtle, but deliberate. One day, after she mentioned missing dishes from her home country in passing, Salma brought her a tray filled with those very foods. "Mr. Tarek asked me to prepare these for you," Salma said. It was hard to pin down his true intentions. He could be cold and distant, yet there were moments he showed genuine care. One morning, Noura found a small stack of books neatly arranged on her nightstand, stories she had mentioned casually before. A warm feeling crept into her chest, realizing he'd paid attention. A pivotal moment came when Noura stumbled upon the mansion's music room. The door was slightly open, and the soft melody of a piano drifted through the hallway. Intrigued, she stepped in to find Tarek playing with unexpected skill. "You play?" she asked, surprised. Tarek glanced up, startled to be caught in such a personal moment. "My mother taught me as a child," he said, pulling his hands from the keys. "It's beautiful," Noura said as she moved closer. He avoided her gaze, unsure how to react to her compliment. In that brief exchange, she saw a glimpse of a man deeply connected to his past beneath his stern exterior. Another time, while Noura was in the garden, she noticed a small bird fall from a branch. Injured, she quickly knelt, gently cradling the fragile creature. Moments later, Tarek appeared, observing her with curiosity. "What will you do with it?" he asked. "I'll care for it until it's strong enough to fly again," Noura answered firmly. He didn't respond, but something in his expression hinted at admiration. Her compassion seemed to resonate deeply with him. Though the mansion often felt lonely at night, Noura found solace in the little routines she created. She enjoyed exploring the quiet hallways, taking in the grandeur of the space. One evening she crossed paths with Tarek. He looked tired, his usually sharp features softer. "Can't sleep?" he asked. Noura hesitated. "Sometimes. There's just too much on my mind," she admitted. Tarek nodded, his expression suggesting he understood all too well. To her surprise, he invited her for tea in the library. Sitting in the cozy warmth of a library surrounded by shelves of books, their conversation stretched longer than ever before. In that quiet exchange, Noura started to glimpse the man behind Tarek's stoic exterior. Even the household staff noticed the subtle shifts in the air. Salma, always warm and polite, now treated Noura with a friendly familiarity that hadn't been there before. Tarek, though still formal, seemed less guarded around her. His gaze had softened, carrying a new curiosity, as if he were beginning to see her in a way he hadn't before. For the first time, Noura felt a faint sense of belonging. The emptiness of the mansion began to fill with fleeting moments of connection that she hadn't expected. However, the weight of their contract remained constant, akin to a shadow from which she could not break free. She reminded herself every day that this arrangement wasn't meant to last. As cracks in Tarek's walls began to show, Noura braced herself for what was to come. She was only beginning to explore the depths of Tarek's complexity. A deeper understanding of him felt inevitable as their lives slowly entwined. Noura found herself more immersed in the rhythms of the mansion than she had planned, and though she tried to keep her emotions in check, small interactions with Tarek began to linger in her mind. Tarek, too, seemed to lean into their evolving relationship, though his interest remained measured. "I see in them the future, something that needs to be nurtured with love and responsibility," he had once said. His words resonated with Noura, revealing a depth she hadn't anticipated. As days turned into weeks, small acts of kindness drew them closer. Tarek started asking about Noura's preferences, and she found little ways to show she noticed his efforts. Their garden chats became a comforting routine, as did the evenings in the library where they shared books and swapped stories. One night, Tarek posed an unexpected question. "If you could change anything about your past, what would it be?" Noura hesitated before answering, her voice steady yet thoughtful. "I think I'd have been more careful about who I trusted. But then again, I'm not sure I'd change it all. Without the mistakes, I wouldn't have Eamon." Her son's name lingered heavily in the air, a poignant reminder of her journey. Tarek noticed the shift in her tone and skillfully redirected the conversation, offering her room to breathe. Despite their growing bond, uncertainty clouded Noura's heart. The contract was a constant barrier, a reminder that their time together was finite. No matter how much she found herself drawn to Tarek, the looming 9-month agreement weighed heavily on her. One night, while stargazing from her balcony, Tarek joined her, sitting quietly by her side. They stayed silent, absorbing the vastness of the sky, until he finally spoke. "You think about the future a lot, don't you?" Noura sighed, her gaze fixed on the stars. "I can't help it. All of this feels so temporary." His eyes met hers, their intensity stealing her breath for just a moment. "The future is ours to shape, Noura. It all comes down to how we choose to navigate the present." Those words struck something deep in Noura, filling her with an unexpected warmth. Though Tarek hadn't said it outright, there was an unspoken promise in his tone, one that hinted at the possibility of a future still unwritten. The change was noticeable. The once cold and distant air of the mansion had softened, replaced by a lighter, more welcoming atmosphere. Even the staff picked up on it. Salma especially seemed relieved to see Tarek becoming less withdrawn and more approachable. Noura found herself changing too. After months of feeling disconnected, she was rediscovering parts of herself she thought were gone. Yet, she couldn't ignore the crossroads ahead. The growing bond between her and Tarek was undeniable, but it also threatened to complicate everything. Still, she chose to embrace the moment, even as uncertainty loomed over the future. The mansion, now filled with a gentle light, felt less intimidating, but Noura's unease lingered. Her connection with Tarek was unexpected, and the secret she was keeping about Zaid weighed on her more each day. She dreaded the thought of Tarek uncovering the truth, but the burden of keeping it hidden was becoming unbearable. After breakfast, she decided to walk around the gardens, hoping the fresh air would clear her mind. Surrounded by the peaceful beauty of flowers and trees, she tried to lose herself, until Salma's urgent call shattered her calm. Hurrying back inside, Noura found Tarek standing in the living room, a photograph in his hand. His face was unreadable. "Who is this boy?" he asked, his voice steady but thick with tension. Noura froze. The photo, one of the few she'd brought with her, was of Zaid. She had hidden it carefully, yet somehow Tarek had found it. "He's my son," she admitted, her voice shaky. The silence that followed was suffocating. Tarek took a slow step toward her, his intense gaze never leaving her. "You deceived me," he whispered, his tone as piercing as a blade. "Why didn't you tell me from the beginning?" Tears threatened to fall, but Noura forced herself to stand tall. "I was scared. I thought it would make things harder. That you'd see me as unfit for the agreement." Tarek crossed his arms, his expression unwavering. "And yet you agreed to this, knowing you'd have to leave another child behind." His words pierced deeply. Noura took a deep breath, steadying herself before speaking. "I did it for him. For the unpaid bills, the overdue rent, the nights he went to bed hungry. I didn't have another choice." Her voice trembled with raw emotion, and Tarek remained silent, clearly processing her words. After what felt like an eternity, he turned to face the window. "You should have trusted me," he said softly, his disappointment cutting deeper than any raised voice could. Tears streamed down Noura's face as the weight of his words settled over her. She knew this moment could destroy everything they had started to build, but she also knew there was no going back. Later that evening, Tarek called her to the library. The room was dimly lit, its atmosphere intimate yet tense. Tarek, seated in his usual chair and holding a folder of papers before him, gazed at her with a seriousness that caused her heart to race. "I've reviewed the terms of our contract," he said bluntly. "There's nothing in it about keeping secrets like this, but it also doesn't address what we're supposed to do in a situation like this." Panic surged in Noura. "Please don't send me away. I'll do whatever it takes to honor our agreement." Tarek held up a hand to stop her. "That's not what I'm saying. But trust is everything, Noura, and we need to rebuild it." He slid a sheet of paper toward her, his expression unreadable. "I want you to see Zaid. You're allowed to visit him, but there's one condition. You can't tell him the truth about our arrangement. Not yet." Noura blinked, taken aback. Tarek's unexpected kindness left her speechless, and with it came a surge of guilt. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Tarek exhaled slowly, clasping his hands together on the table. "Because I know what it feels like to grow up without answers," he said simply. "I want your son to have a piece of you in his life, even if it's just for now." The weight of his words was unexpected by Noura. For the first time, she glimpsed the depth behind Tarek's stern exterior. He wasn't just a man driven by ambition, he was someone burdened by his own unspoken wounds. The following day, Noura was taken to see Zaid. The journey was long, but every mile brought her closer to him. When she arrived, her emotions surged. The moment Zaid saw her, he ran into her arms, and she hugged him as if she'd never let go. "Mummy, you're back," he exclaimed, his voice bright with joy. Noura smiled, but her heart was heavy. She knew this reunion was temporary, and the thought of leaving him again was almost unbearable. They spent the day together, laughing and playing as if time had turned back to happier days. But as night fell, the reality of their looming goodbye settled over her. When it was time to leave, Zaid clung to her, asking, "When will you come back?" "Soon, my love," she replied softly, though the uncertainty in her heart made the word feel fragile. Back at the mansion, Noura returned drained, both physically and emotionally. Tarek was waiting in the living room, his expression calm but attentive. "How is he?" he asked, his voice lined with genuine concern. "He's happy," Noura said, as she sank into the sofa, her vulnerability apparent. "But it's so hard to leave him." Tarek nodded, his understanding silent but palpable. In the days that followed, something shifted between them. There was a new sense of mutual understanding and unspoken respect. Tarek's actions became more thoughtful, and Noura found herself beginning to trust him. Simple moments, like sharing a quiet meal or strolling through the gardens, became significant. One evening, as they sat in the library, Tarek opened up in a way she didn't expect. "My mother passed away when I was a child," he said, his voice low and reflective. "My father was always consumed by work. I had to shoulder responsibilities before I even understood what they meant." Noura studied him, recognizing how deeply personal his words were. "That must have been so hard," she said softly. "It was," he admitted, "but it shaped who I am. Still, no matter what I achieve, it feels like there's always something missing." Noura desired to console him, yet she understood he wasn't prepared to completely surrender his defenses. However, that moment of vulnerability created a bridge between them. For those who are passing by, here's a secret game. Comment KFC if you've made it this far. Let's see who's actually paying attention. Over the months, their relationship transformed. What had started as a cold, transactional arrangement grew into something deeper, built on mutual respect and unexpected admiration. Noura began to see Tarek not just as a powerful man, but as someone with a deeply human side. Tarek, in turn, came to appreciate Noura's resilience and compassion in a way he hadn't anticipated. Time was slipping by, and both of them understood that the uncertain future would soon demand their attention. Following Noura's visit to Ayman, an unusual calm settled over the mansion. Something had shifted in the dynamic between Tarek and Noura. What had once been a tense, guarded connection now carried a sense of quiet understanding. Noura's days followed their familiar rhythm. Morning strolls in the garden, afternoons immersed in books in the library, and evenings spent gazing at the stars from the balcony. Even with these routines, her thoughts never strayed far from her son. His voice lingered in her mind like a song she couldn't forget. One morning, while sipping her coffee, she was startled by Tarek's unexpected arrival. Over the months, their relationship transformed. What had started as a cold, transactional arrangement grew into something deeper, built on mutual respect and unexpected admiration. Noura began to see Tarek not just as a powerful man, but as someone with a deeply human side. Tarek, in turn, came to appreciate Noura's resilience and compassion in a way he hadn't anticipated. Time was slipping by, and both of them understood that the uncertain future would soon demand their attention. Following Nora's visit to Ayman, an unusual calm settled over the mansion. Something had shifted in the dynamic between Tarek and Nora. What had once been a tense, guarded connection now carried a sense of quiet understanding. Nora's days followed their familiar rhythm. Morning strolls in the garden, afternoons immersed in books in the library, and evenings spent gazing at the stars from the balcony. Even with these routines, her thoughts never strayed far from her son. His voice lingered in her mind, like a song she couldn't forget. One morning, while sipping her coffee, she was startled by Tarek's unexpected arrival. The silence was profound, broken only by the gentle whisper of the wind. Settling into a wooden chair, Nora exhaled deeply, feeling more relaxed than she had in weeks. "This is the only place where I can think clearly," Tarek admitted, as he took a seat beside her. "It's beautiful," Nora said, her gaze fixed on the horizon. After a pause, Tarek asked, "Do you miss your home?" Nora's thoughts wandered to her past. "I miss what it stood for," she replied softly. "It was simple, but it held so many memories." Tarek nodded, his expression showing an understanding that words couldn't convey. In the stillness of the desert, the silence between them felt like a bridge instead of a wall. The visit marked a turning point in their relationship. Back at the mansion, Tarek began including Nora in more aspects of his life, from staff meetings to decisions about daily routines. Nora, in turn, saw glimpses of the man behind the tough exterior. One evening over dinner, Tarek surprised her with a comment. "I've been thinking about renovating the mansion," he said casually. Nora raised an eyebrow. "What kind of renovations?" "I want to make it feel like a home. A place where a family could belong," Tarek said, looking away as if revealing too much. The words tightened something in Nora's chest. For the first time, Tarek hinted at a future that extended beyond their current arrangement. Yet, she knew there were still hurdles to overcome before such dreams could become reality. One afternoon in the garden, Nora came across Salma, the housekeeper, carrying a tray of tea and cookies. Salma's cheerful demeanor was impossible to miss. "You seem particularly happy today, Salma." "What's the occasion?" Nora asked with a smile. Salma's eyes sparkled as she replied, "It's just nice to see how much things are changing around here." The mansion had never felt so alive. Nora felt her cheeks warm, but chose not to reply. She knew Salma's comment was about the evolving relationship between her and Tarek. Even with the uncertainty surrounding her future, it was clear that something meaningful was beginning to grow. Over time, Nora noticed Tarek changing in unexpected ways. He began to spend more time with her, revealing a softer, more approachable side of himself. What used to be quick, formal exchanges turned into long conversations where they shared personal details about their lives. During one of these talks, Tarek opened up about something deeply personal. "I never knew how to handle losing my mother," he admitted, his voice tinged with pain. "She was the glue that held our family together. When she passed, everything fell apart." Nora felt a surge of compassion. Though their experiences were different, she understood the pain of losing something or someone significant. That moment of vulnerability forged a stronger connection between them. Still, Nora couldn't ignore the constraints of their situation. The contract between them loomed over every interaction, making her feelings for Tarek even more complicated. Nights were often sleepless as she wrestled with her emotions and the reality of their agreement. One evening, a knock at her door startled her. Tarek stood there, looking uneasy. "Can we talk?" he asked, stepping inside and sitting across from her bed. "I know there are boundaries between us," he started, his voice tentative, "but I'm trying to make sense of what this all means." Noura's heart raced as his words hinted at a deeper shift. "I'm trying to too," she admitted softly. Tarek seemed reassured by her honesty. Despite the uncertainty, both seemed ready to face the unknown together. The staff in the mansion couldn't help but notice the changes. Salma, always perceptive, commented on how Tarek seemed more relaxed, almost human. Even the other employees noticed how Noura's presence had warmed the once sterile environment. For Noura, the mansion began to feel less like a temporary arrangement and more like a place where something meaningful was taking shape. Every night, as she gazed at the stars, she sensed she was approaching a pivotal moment. The bond between her and Tarek wasn't something she had anticipated, but it now felt unavoidable. They were both changing, embarking on a journey neither had foreseen. The days in the mansion moved forward, yet the atmosphere was charged with an undeniable energy. Their connection grew with every small act of kindness, every lingering glance, and every candid conversation. Noura knew that every shared moment was pulling her closer to a pivotal moment. One morning, while Tarek worked in his office, Noura walked in carrying a tray of coffee. He glanced up, surprised, as she placed it on his desk. "Thought you could use a break," she said, keeping her tone light. Tarek studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable, before responding. Lately, staying focused has been a struggle. Noura hesitated before lowering herself into the chair across from him. "Work issues?" she asked gently. He shook his head. "No, just a lot on my mind." The pause that followed was weighty, though not uncomfortable. Unspoken thoughts seemed to linger in the air. Finally, Noura broke the silence. "Do you think you've made the right choices so far?" she asked. Tarek's gaze softened as he looked at her. "I'm not sure," he admitted. "Life has taught me to be practical, but sometimes I wonder if being so rigid has kept me from what really matters." Their connection grew with every small act of kindness, every lingering glance, and every candid conversation. Noura knew that every shared moment was pulling her closer to a pivotal moment. One morning while Tarek worked in his office, Noura walked in carrying a tray of coffee. He glanced up, surprised, as she placed it on his desk. "Thought you could use a break," she said, keeping her tone light. Tarek studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable, before responding. "Lately, staying focused has been a struggle." Noura hesitated before lowering herself into the chair across from him. "Work issues?" she asked gently. He shook his head. "No, just a lot on my mind." The pause that followed was weighty, though not uncomfortable. Unspoken thoughts seemed to linger in the air. Finally, Noura broke the silence. "Do you think you've made the right choices so far?" she asked. Tarek's gaze softened as he looked at her. "I'm not sure," he admitted. "Life has taught me to be practical, but sometimes I wonder if being so rigid has kept me from what really matters." In turn, Noura confided in him about her own struggles, including raising Amun and finding moments of joy amid the hardships. Tarek listened attentively, showing a more compassionate side she hadn't seen before. One evening, as they strolled through the garden under the moonlight, Tarek stopped suddenly. "Noura, I need you to know that you've shown me something I didn't realize before," he said. "What do you mean?" she inquired, taken aback. "That there's more to life than obligations and deals. Sometimes, you have to make space for something new." Her heart raced. She knew she was falling for him, but the reality of their agreement loomed over her. Meanwhile, the changes in their relationship didn't go unnoticed. Salma, always observant, began treating Noura with a warmth that hinted at something more permanent. The rest of the staff exchanged smiles whenever they saw the two together. But Noura couldn't shake the fear of what lay ahead. As the end of the contract drew nearer, Noura felt the growing weight of uncertainty. In turn, Noura confided in him about her own struggles, including raising Amun and finding moments of joy amid the hardships. Tarek listened attentively, showing a more compassionate side she hadn't seen before. One evening, as they strolled through the garden under the moonlight, Tarek stopped suddenly. "Noura, I need you to know that you've shown me something I didn't realize before," he said. "What do you mean?" she inquired, taken aback. "That there's more to life than obligations and deals. Sometimes you have to make space for something new." Her heart raced. She knew she was falling for him, but the reality of their agreement loomed over her. Meanwhile, the changes in their relationship didn't go unnoticed. Salma, always observant, began treating Noura with a warmth that hinted at something more permanent. The rest of the staff exchanged smiles whenever they saw the two together, but Noura couldn't shake the fear of what lay ahead. As the end of the contract drew nearer, Noura felt the growing weight of uncertainty. Though the situation was undeniably complicated, for the first time in ages, Noura felt a flicker of hope. Over the following days, she and Tarek began having more honest conversations about their worries and desires. Both realized their emotions were far deeper than either had anticipated. Noura started to picture a life with Tarek and her son, while Tarek dared to imagine creating a real family with her. Yet, their path was far from easy. Tarek wrestled with the weight of his family's expectations, and Noura grappled with the knowledge that her life was forever changed. Even so, they leaned on each other for strength. One quiet night, while sitting under the stars on the terrace, Tarek broke the silence with words that would forever stay with Noura. "I didn't understand what love was until you came into my life." Tears welled up in her eyes, but this time they were tears of joy. Despite all the struggles, something extraordinary was blossoming between them. The mansion, once a symbol of emptiness, now felt like it could become a home, and their connection was far more powerful than any binding agreement. As the sun dipped below the horizon, its golden light filtering through the mansion windows, Noura retreated to the music room, one of her favorite spots. She let her fingers drift over the piano keys, playing a soft, haunting tune. Tarek quietly entered, interrupting her melody. "Did you teach yourself to play?" he asked gently. Noura looked up, startled, but then offered a small smile. "My mom taught me when I was young. It was our way of staying close even when things were tough." Tarek nodded, stepping closer and sitting beside her on the bench. He watched her hands as they moved gracefully across the keys. "You're really talented," he said in a low voice. She felt the tension hanging in the air, but chose not to reply. After a moment of silence, Tarek spoke again. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything that's happened to bring us here." Noura stopped playing and turned to face him. His serious expression made her heart skip. "And? What are you thinking?" she asked, trying to steady her voice. Tarek drew in a deep breath before continuing. "I can't deny what's grown between us, but I also can't ignore how my past and my family's expectations have shaped me. They've always been obstacles." A mixture of hope and unease swirled within her. Hearing Tarek open up about his struggles felt like a pivotal moment. That same evening, he suggested they walk around the gardens. As they strolled through the tranquil paths, the rustling leaves and soft breeze set a peaceful backdrop, though the weight of their conversation loomed. "My father was a hard man," Tarek began, his voice steady but tinged with pain. "To him, family honor was everything. I grew up constantly trying to live up to his expectations, and it shaped how I view the world." Noura walked beside him, listening intently, her heart aching for the boy Tarek once was. When my mom passed away, he became even more closed off, Tarek admitted, his voice subdued. Everything revolved around control, making sure nothing deviated from the plan. "And that's why you think having an heir is so important?" Noura asked gently. Tarek paused mid-step, turning to face her. "Partly," he said, then hesitated. "But also because, deep down, I think I've always been afraid of ending up alone." Noura's chest tightened. She understood the weight of loneliness, but hearing Tarek's voice revealed a side of him she hadn't fully seen before. A vulnerable, deeply human side hidden beneath his stoic exterior. The following morning, Tarek invited Noura on a trip to the desert. They set off early, the horizon soon replaced by endless golden dunes that shimmered under the rising sun. After hours of travel, they arrived at a secluded oasis. As they strolled beside its pristine waters, Tarek elucidated its significance. "This place has always been special to me," he said, his voice steady. "Whenever I need clarity, I come here. It's a reminder that even in the middle of a barren desert, life still finds a way." Noura felt herself grounded in the moment, sensing its importance. Beneath the shade of a swaying palm tree, Tarek began to open up again. "I've spent so much of my life stuck in the past and living up to everyone else's expectations," he admitted, "that I've never stopped to figure out what I truly want." Noura looked at him intently, her pulse quickening. "And what do you want now?" she asked softly. Tarek turned to her, his eyes catching the sunlight. "I want something real, something that's not defined by contracts or duty." Her throat tightened as emotions surged, but she managed to hold back her tears. His words were what she had longed to hear, yet she knew their journey was far from over. Back at the mansion, an air of lightness replaced the usual tension between them, though unspoken challenges lingered. Each night, Noura found herself reflecting on her decisions and how they would shape her son's future. She knew she had to confront her fears and let go of past pain to truly move forward. One night, as she stood on the balcony beneath a canopy of stars, Tarek joined her, holding 2 steaming cups of tea. He handed one to her and stood in silence for a moment before speaking. "You know, Noura," he began in a low voice, "I never thought I'd meet someone who would make me question everything I believed." She turned to him, feeling the gravity of his confession. "You've shown me there's more to life, that there's room for something beyond just duty and responsibility." Her lips curved into a small, grateful smile. "And you've shown me that strength can grow from pain," she replied softly. "I wouldn't have made it this far without you." In the days that followed, Tarek took deliberate steps to redefine their relationship. He reviewed the terms of their contract, determined to find a solution that would honor them both. Noura felt both relief and unease, knowing their path would still have obstacles. But for the first time, there was a sense of progress. The staff at the mansion began noticing changes as well. Tarek's usual detached demeanor softened, replaced by warmth, while Noura carried herself with a newfound confidence. One afternoon, Salma, ever perceptive, remarked to Noura, "I always knew Mr. Tarek had a kind heart. He just needed someone to help him uncover it." Noura smiled, a swell of gratitude washing over her. Despite the positive strides, Noura knew the future remained unpredictable. She and Tarek would have to continue facing their fears and growing together. But for the first time, she allowed herself to feel hope, a chance for love to conquer all odds. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues over the estate, Noura and Tarek found themselves on the terrace, quietly watching the world transition to night. They both understood the journey ahead would be far from easy, but they were resolute in their commitment to face it together. The atmosphere inside the mansion had shifted noticeably. What was once a tense, almost suffocating environment now carried a lighter, more hopeful energy. However, uncertainty continued to linger, and Noura and Tarek were acutely aware that they were at a critical juncture. Big decisions loomed on the horizon. One morning, Tarek asked Noura to join him in his office. Normally an intimidating space, the room felt surprisingly intimate as he invited her to sit. Noura's emotions were a mixture of curiosity and unease as she took her place across from him. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about our agreement and everything that's transpired since you arrived," Tarek began, his tone steady but filled with unspoken emotion. Noura listened intently, her gaze locked on his, waiting for him to continue. "When we first made this arrangement, my focus was singular, ensuring an heir for the family," he admitted, folding his hands on the desk. "But things have changed." Noura's heart pounded as she anticipated his next words, both hoping for and fearing what he might say. "I can't ignore the feelings that have grown between us," he confessed, his voice softer now. Her pulse quickened. It was what she'd longed to hear, but it also came with an avalanche of questions. "What are you saying?" she asked quietly. "I'm saying I want us to find a way forward together. Not because of a contract, but because it's what we both want," Tarek explained, his gaze unwavering. His words carried a glimmer of hope, but Noura knew it wouldn't be as simple as that. She needed assurance that they were prepared to face the challenges ahead, given the complexities of their situation. Later that day, as she strolled through the garden, Noura replayed Tarek's words in her mind. While her feelings for him were undeniable, harsh realities remained. Her son, Zaid, lived in another city, and their contract was clear. She was to leave once the baby was born. Seeking clarity, Noura found Salma near the fountain, tending to the flowers. "Salma," Noura began hesitantly, "do you think I can trust Tarek?" Her voice carried the weight of her uncertainty. Salma paused, surprised by the question, before answering thoughtfully. "Mr. Tarek is a man of integrity. He doesn't make promises he doesn't intend to keep," Salma said gently. "But he's human, Noura. Like you, he's navigating what he feels and what he believes he must do." Those words brought Noura a small measure of comfort, but her inner conflict remained. The following day, Tarek invited Noura to visit an orphanage he supported. While he had mentioned it before, this visit felt different. When they arrived, children swarmed them with joy, laughter, and hugs. Noura watched as Tarek interacted with the kids, his stern demeanor melting into warmth and kindness. It was a side of him she hadn't seen before. "You genuinely care for them," she said softly, as they watched the children play nearby. "They remind me that life is about more than responsibilities and work." "There's beauty in the simple things," Tarek replied, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that left her breathless. His words resonated deeply, stirring a sense of possibility in Noura's heart. For the first time, she sensed that Tarek was genuinely ready to change, to let go of some of the control he held so tightly in exchange for something more meaningful. Back at the estate, Tarek made a pivotal decision. He called in his legal team to revise the agreement. He reworked several clauses, ensuring Noura would have greater freedom and the right to maintain contact with Zaid after their child was born. When he presented the updated contract to Noura, she was visibly moved. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her hands trembling as she held the document. "Because I want you to know you're not alone in this," Tarek replied. "I don't want you to feel trapped. I want you to stay because you trust me, not because you have to." Tears rolled down Noura's face, not of sorrow, but of relief and gratitude. As time went on, the connection between Tarek and Noura deepened. Conversations that had once been stiff and formal now felt easy and natural. They shared personal stories, dreams, and even fears, creating a bond that felt authentic and lasting. One evening, As they relaxed on the terrace, Tarek broached an idea he had been mulling over. He expressed his desire to meet Zaid to Noura. She was taken aback by the proposal. She paused, unsure of how to respond. "Are you sure?" she asked cautiously. "Absolutely," he said. "He's a part of your life, and I want to know every part of your life." Noura's heart warmed. Tarek's desire to include Zaid was a clear sign of his commitment to their future. Their trip to see Zaid was a mix of nerves and excitement. Tarek appeared composed, but Noura could tell he was anxious. When they arrived, Zaid bolted toward Noura, wrapping her in a tight hug. "Mommy," he cried happily. Tarek watched the reunion with a soft smile. When Noura introduced them, Zaid looked at Tarek with curiosity. "Are you my mum's friend?" the boy asked innocently. Tarek knelt down to meet Zaid at eye level and replied, "Yes, I am, and I hope we can be friends too." Zaid smiled, and Noura felt a wave of relief and joy. The interaction between them felt natural, as if Zaid instinctively trusted Tarek. After returning to the estate, Noura started to believe that she was truly building something real. Her relationship with Tarek was no longer just about the contract. It was evolving into something built on trust and genuine emotion. Yet, she understood there were still challenges ahead. One night, as they sat under the stars, Tarek held her hand and said, "I know we have a lot to face, but I want you to know I'm ready to do whatever it takes to make this work." Noura's heart filled with hope. For the first time, she truly believed they had a future together. Life at the estate started to feel more familiar to Noura, and the bond with Tarek grew stronger. After their visit with Zaid, something shifted in Tarek. He became more attentive, more present, almost as if he was beginning to understand the depth of Noura's life before she came into his world. One morning, as they sat on the terrace drinking coffee, Tarek surprised her with an unexpected suggestion. "I want Zaid to live here," he said, his tone calm but firm. Noura's eyes widened in disbelief. "Are you serious?" she asked, trying to process his words. "Yes," he said, meeting her gaze. "If we're going to build a life together, I want him to be a part of it from the start." Noura's heart raced. The idea of having her son close was everything she'd hoped for, but uncertainty lingered. "And what about the contract?" she asked hesitantly. Tarek took a deep breath. "The contract doesn't have to define us," he said. "We can arrange everything to make sure Zaid has a home here without giving up anything important." Noura stayed quiet, deeply touched by Tarek's willingness to adjust his life for her. This gesture conveyed a deeper meaning than any words could. Preparations for Zaid's arrival started right away. Tarek asked Salma to set up a room for him, incorporating Noura's ideas. She wanted the space to feel cozy and familiar, with details that would remind Zaid of the home he had known. On the day Zaid arrived, Noura couldn't hide her nerves. As the grand doors opened and Zaid ran straight into her arms, she embraced him tightly, as though protecting him from the world. "This place is huge, Mum," he said, his wide eyes taking in the mansion with awe. Tarek, standing nearby, walked over at a steady pace. Lowering himself to Zaid's level, he extended his hand. "Welcome, Zaid. I hope you'll feel at home here." Zaid shook his hand hesitantly, but managed a shy smile. "Thank you, sir." Noura noticed how, even in his reserved demeanor, Tarek made a genuine effort to connect with her son. The first days were a whirlwind of adjustments and new routines. Zaid quickly embraced the mansion's grandeur, exploring every nook and asking endless questions. Tarek, though typically reserved, answered each one with patience and attentiveness. One evening, as Noura tucked Zaid into bed, he asked, "Mum, is Mr. Tarek a good man?" Taken aback, Noura hesitated before responding with a gentle smile. Yes, he is. He's working to be better every day. Satisfied with her answer, Zaid smiled and drifted off to sleep. As Noura sat beside him, watching his peaceful expression, she felt an unfamiliar but welcome sense of certainty. She was finally on the right path. Over time, Zaid and Tarek began to forge a connection. They spent afternoons playing chess or wandering through the gardens. Tarek, who once seemed distant, revealed a more approachable and caring side. During one of their walks, Zaid stopped suddenly and looked up at Tarek. "Do you like my mom?" he asked, with the innocent boldness of a child. Tarek, taken aback but amused, replied, "I do. She's very special." Zaid grinned and continued walking, leaving Tarek smiling thoughtfully behind him. It was a small but meaningful moment that hinted at their growing bond. One afternoon, Noura found Tarek immersed in his work, reviewing a stack of documents in his office. She stepped in cautiously, carrying a cup of tea. "Is this a bad time?" she asked. Tarek looked up and smiled warmly. "Never," he said. She settled onto a nearby sofa, watching him focus on his work. There was something comforting about his quiet dedication. "You're doing so much for us," she said after a moment. Tarek put down his pen and looked her straight in the eye. "Because you're worth it," he said simply. His words sent her heart racing. Despite the obstacles they had faced, Noura realized they were building something meaningful together. As the months passed, their home filled with a new kind of energy. The connection between Tarek and Noura deepened, and Zaid became an inseparable part of their lives. The anticipation of the baby's arrival only strengthened their bond. One evening, as Noura rested on the terrace, she felt a sharp discomfort in her abdomen. Assuming it was just another pregnancy symptom, she tried to dismiss it, but the pain quickly grew worse. Alarmed, she called for Salma, who immediately ran to find Tarek. Noura was about to give birth. Salma's eyes widened with urgency as she delivered the news. Tarek rushed to the bedroom, finding Noura struggling to catch her breath, each contraction hitting hard. "We're heading to the hospital now," he said firmly, gripping her hand tightly. The car ride was tense, with Tarek, usually calm under pressure, visibly on edge. He held Noura's hand the entire time, whispering reassurances. "Everything's going to be okay, Noura. I'm right here with you," he repeated, his voice steady, but his eyes full of concern. The medical team at the hospital took immediate action, but Tarek remained by Noura's side. He stayed close, holding her hand and offering words of support throughout the labor. Hours later, the sound of a newborn's cry broke through the tension, filling the room with relief and joy. Cradling the tiny boy in his arms, Tarek's heart swelled with emotion. "He's beautiful, Noura. Absolutely perfect," he murmured, tears pooling in his eyes. Noura, exhausted but glowing with happiness, smiled at the sight of their son. This moment signified the beginning of a fresh phase in their lives. A few days later, Noura was resting in bed with the baby nestled in her arms when Tarek walked in, holding an envelope. His expression was serious, but his eyes shone with love. Sitting beside her, he spoke softly, "Noura, there's something I need you to see." Upon opening the envelope, Tarek extracted a document and, to Noura's astonishment, shattered it into tiny fragments, allowing them to scatter across the floor like confetti. "This contract doesn't mean anything anymore," he said. "Everything I've done has been for you and our family. I don't want anything, not even this, to dictate our future." Taking her hands in his, he gazed at her with unshakable love. "Noura, you've brought light into my life. You've shown me what love truly is and what it means to have a family. I want to spend forever by your side, raising our children and taking on the world together. Revealing a small velvet box, Tarek opened it to reveal a delicate diamond ring. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his voice filled with hope. Tears streamed down Noura's face as she nodded, her voice trembling with joy. "Yes, Tarek, I will." Amen, who had been secretly watching from the doorway, dashed into the room and hugged them both. "We're going to be a real family," he exclaimed with excitement. Tarek scooped the boy into his arms, and together they celebrated a moment that would define their lives forever. The following months were filled with excitement as they planned their wedding. Noura wanted a ceremony that celebrated her heritage and the love they had cultivated, and Tarek made sure every detail reflected her vision. The mansion was transformed into a dreamlike setting, adorned with vibrant flowers, twinkling lights, and touches of both Arabic and Western traditions. When the big day arrived, the garden sparkled under the bright sun. Noura looked breathtaking in a white gown accented with gold, while Amen, dressed sharply in a little suit, proudly carried the rings. As Noura walked down the aisle, Tarek's eyes glistened with admiration. "You look stunning," he whispered as he took her hands. Their vows were heartfelt and genuine, promising love and partnership for a lifetime. Amen, who had been secretly watching from the doorway, dashed into the room and hugged them both. "We're going to be a real family," he exclaimed with excitement. Tarek scooped the boy into his arms, and together they celebrated a moment that would define their lives forever. The following months were filled with excitement as they planned their wedding. Noura wanted a ceremony that celebrated her heritage and the love they had cultivated, and Tarek made sure every detail reflected her vision. The mansion was transformed into a dreamlike setting, adorned with vibrant flowers, twinkling lights, and touches of both Arabic and Western traditions. When the big day arrived, the garden sparkled under the bright sun. Noura looked breathtaking in a white gown accented with gold, while Amen, dressed sharply in a little suit, proudly carried the rings. As Noura walked down the aisle, Tarek's eyes glistened with admiration. "You look stunning," he whispered as he took her hands. Their vows were heartfelt and genuine, promising love and partnership for a lifetime. If this film touches your heart, leave your mark with a like, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to explore more meaningful stories with us. Share your feelings with us and tell us your own stories. Every word you share is a building block that helps create our strong and enduring community. Together, we'll create a warm space where everyone can share and connect. Finally, don't miss the incredible stories coming your way soon. We're always here to bring you the best selections, full of deep values, yet entertaining. See you there.